Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Final Fantasy IV, where we are moving out of the castle area and progressing further with the story, which requires us to explore further into this lava-filled area.
Hey, didn't we go through a volcano in the first Final Fantasy game? I hope we don't have to go through the actual lava itself again, since that would be really inconvenient.
You are correct on that, but no, we don't actually have to go into the lava itself, as you are correct, that would be bad. There will be a more dangerous ground section that's similar in concept, but not actually required to take damage from.
Wait a minute, you had to walk in lava in a previous game? That doesn't make any sense. Nobody could survive that.
There's a lot of stuff about this game series that doesn't make any sense. Apparently, the designers of the first game thought that walking through lava was a really good way of challenging the player to just use healing items or magic more often, as it did 1 damage point per step, which you'd think it would cause a lot more damage than that. But no.
That is pretty weird. I think it would have been funny to see that happen somehow.
Hey, Barak, isn't this place the Tower of Babel? I feel like I've heard about that in another story or something.
You are correct, Joe, and it actually is visible if you go to an island near the bottom left of the map on the overworld, though I don't think we actually made it over there, so you wouldn't have seen it. It's the tallest structure in the game, as far as I can tell. While we go through this section, I think it's time we give a couple updates to the channel in this game.
After making a post and thinking it over, we've decided to speed up the gameplay in the overworld, as the default speed is still a little slower than we'd prefer, and some of the scenes go on for a while. We don't intend to speed past the major battles or even skip them unless it's taking quite a while, but it will cut down on the less important parts and leave more room for story moments, and so our conversations aren't being spread too thin or become less creative.
Aside from the game itself, we have also become one of the main creators featured in the AI Force One Discord. This was originally called PokeForce One and was mainly for Pokemon content creators, but has since rebranded into more general content creators. You can find a lot of discussions and updates from various others, including President Central, of course. It's a great time there, and as of this moment has over 600 people there. If you enjoy what we post, there's a lot more variety there compared to just the games played here.
There are also community streams that happen on an almost weekly basis that happen on Thursdays, so if you enjoy games like Jackbox Party Pack or Minecraft, or just watching other people have fun on games, then that's another reason to join. I don't think we'll stream on this specific channel, but we'll likely provide links when our editor is in the streams on occasion.
All right, guys, let's not go too hard on the advertisements here. We have to focus on Barak going through this tower place, because after the Tower of Zot, that I still don't know where it's supposed to be geographically, we needed yet another tower. I wonder why we couldn't just make it so they had to go to this tower both times if it's also on the top part of the world.
Interesting how you mention that, because we actually do go through the Tower of Babil again later on, but it's not something where they climb to the top of it. Maybe the designers didn't want us going through the same general structure 3 times, but they look pretty similar anyway. So I do think you're right in that it would have made more sense.
I noticed a lot of these enemies seem to involve fire in some way, both in and out of the tower. Is there any reason why there are enemies in this place to begin with? Like, what do they do when we're not here?
I don't think there's any real reason why there are enemies in places across the game, or at least I don't remember there being one. If I had to guess, it's because there had to be some way for the characters to get stronger, so they always have something to fight. It's kind of weird for a mechanical tower to be built like this and inhabited by so many things that couldn't really survive here, as there's no clear place for food. Then again, I'd imagine all the rocks and lava outside don't really give that many options either.
That sounds about right, George. There's no explanation I'm aware of.
Barak, did you just kill that egg? What exactly is an egg doing out in the open like this? Where are this thing's parents? What could have laid an egg that large anyway?
This is yet another one of those things that I cannot explain. It can hatch into several different enemies, so there's no one thing it will become. It's best to just fight it or run away, as it's not going to do anything on its own except for hatch into something you're going to fight anyway.
You just said you couldn't explain it and then told us what it did right after.
What I meant was, I don't know how it got there or what exactly laid it, but at least in the battle I know what it does. I could have been more specific though.
Hey, have we ever talked about if we're doing a Final Fantasy game after this one? I'm not sure if we've really had much of a discussion about that yet.
I'm not sure yet, but I suppose we can mention it now. At this time we already have this one to finish, though we are already over halfway there, so we'll be done before the end of the year at this rate. I know there's still Kingdom Hearts, which is going to take quite a while, along with any other Mega Man games, since Ben really likes those ones. Plus, there's still plans for Donald playing Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty, so even if we were going to play it, then it wouldn't be for a long time, since aside from the Mega Man ones, these are all pretty long games. Even then, the more popular requests we've gotten are Final Fantasy 6 and 7, which are both really long, and I'm not sure we'd get them done in a reasonable time. In all likelihood, this is the last Final Fantasy game we'll play for the channel for the time being, though. That doesn't mean we won't play another game in the series a lot later. Hopefully this doesn't sound too disappointing.
I think it's reasonable enough, since I'm excited to play my game later this year, and for Ben to continue his. Hopefully George will join us on occasion for some of those games, as I'm not sure if he's too familiar with those ones.
I'm sure I'll have some time in my schedule in the upcoming months, so I might stop by even if it's not for a whole playthrough. That being said, I don't know if I'll be in a whole playthrough until the next Final Fantasy game, which, based on what you're saying, sounds like it could be in quite a long time from now, if you're only uploading one part a week.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to do more than that, especially with Joe being the president, Donald campaigning to be the president, and dealing with court cases, Barack doing whatever it is he does since being president, and me being host of the most important website known to us that gives us a good amount and of time to relax together and entertain others.
Yeah, I do get busy being the president and all, plus sometimes I even have to leave the White House every once a month or six. Hey, Barack, we haven't talked much about the game. Is anything important going to happen soon?
Yes, Joe, we will be getting to something a little bit more substantial soon. It's just that there's not much to talk about before this section. We're about to meet a few characters that are going to cause us some problems in this part, and a few coming up soon.
Looks like one of them just teleported away, so I don't think we really met them exactly. I wonder what they're even doing here.
And it looks like this one is pretty excited for some reason. I think it would be funny if he just fell off this level and we didn't have to fight him. I'm guessing we have to fight him, at least since it seems like every character we meet for the first time in a new area inevitably leads to a fight that Barack wins without much difficulty.
You are correct on that, Donald, as we have to fight Dr. Lugay and his robot Barnabas. I'm not sure where the robot came from exactly, but still, we have to beat them. This fight is unique, as the order in which you finish one of them off causes you to fight a slightly different character by the end of it. Defeating Barnabas first will cause the Doctor to take over and create Barnabas Z, which I'll be showing off in a moment. Defeating the Doctor first doesn't really do anything special, though. Regardless of which order you choose, you will have to fight the Doctor again directly after.
Thank you for the explanation, Barack, but I think it's time I finally get my roast skills started up, as I haven't done that in a while.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I'll start with Barnabas, as he won't be in the battle much longer. Barnabas, I would say you have a face only a mother could love, but this is actually not true, as since you are a robot, you do not have a mother, and even if you did, she wouldn't love you. You're so ineffective in battle that by the time I've started roasting you, the battle is almost over. You may be required to fill the bestiary to completion, but you are not required on this earth since you bring no value to it, you loser.
And with that, the first fight is done, and some of those roasts were actually pretty good.
Do you think you'll be able to handle roasting the Doctor alone in the second fight?
You better believe I am, George. Dr. Lugay, you are so dumb you probably got your doctorate after graduating from Trump University.
Wait, what?
The only time in my life I've wished I was your failure Barnabas was right now, since he doesn't have to look at your ugly face. If I had a nickel for every time Barack had to fight you, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice. I'm not sure where you live exactly, since I haven't seen any homes around all the lava outside, but perhaps it would be best if you didn't talk to anyone ever again, so they would be spared from having the displeasure of being acknowledged by you. You may have just transformed a moment ago, but I would have preferred you transformed into a corpse instead. You look so old and decrepit you would have fit right in during the most recent debate.
Wait, what?
I hope this battle is almost over, as I'd rather sniff gasoline than continue watching you fight, which is probably what your mother was doing while she was pregnant with you.
All right, Ben, you were starting to run low on roasting material towards the end, but it worked out as he's finally done. That wasn't overly difficult, but really I've come to expect that at this point.
You both did a good job at fighting and roasting everyone over the past minute or so. I'm guessing this is the main important fight for the video, though I suppose there's still a while left, so a lot could happen.
You are correct in that this is the most important fight in the video, though the important story elements will continue on as we're getting the key, which will allow us to enter an area that was previously not accessible.
I don't think we mentioned this section earlier, right? I think we were talking about something else and just walked right by it, but I'm glad you know where to go.
To be fair, we've been talking about something else for the majority of the video so far, and unless something crazy happens in the game, it might go back to that.
Hey, why did Rosa use haste on herself when it seems like the battle is already almost over? I don't think that really helped anything.
Well, sometimes I have the auto battle function on, and apparently Rosa's last action was to use haste, so it was just an accident, though this fight is really easy, so it doesn't affect anything. Still, the fact remains that it was a small mistake on my part. The real important part happens after the battle. The Goblin captains aren't content with losing, so they have to sabotage the machine that they're stationed at. Not sure what exactly they do, since they don't have any other duties in this place. Kind of makes me wonder who is employing them.
Hold up, Barack. Is Yang sacrificing himself here? I hope he can make it out okay from that room.
Based on the red screen and shaking, the room seemed to have exploded, so he probably didn't make it out of there. What I'm confused on is the fact that he didn't even really explain what he was doing. It still exploded, so it's not like he prevented anything from happening. And the door was open, so it's not like he couldn't have just went out with everyone else. It seems like he just needlessly left himself in there when it's treated as a sacrifice. He must have taken one of Joe's pills before to make a decision like that.
Yeah, I agree with Donald. Even with the speed up, it seems his alleged sacrifice was for nothing and went by too quickly to really comprehend. And now there's a bridge falling and a ship here. This went from 0 to 100 really quickly.
At least Sid is back here now. I didn't really care for him. In fact, I don't think anyone really did when he was in the party, but at least he can fill in the spot that Yang left us with. May his useless sacrifice carry us forward onto a better party of characters.
Actually, that's not quite what happens.
Wait, what? I thought that would have made the most sense for Sid to take over since we're down a party member now. I mean, even if he's not all that great, he would have some purpose since he saved us from falling. Actually, now that I think about it, how exactly were the characters falling in a position where they would be outside of the tower when they were falling downwards from the bridge inside the tower? Did I miss something, or did they somehow teleport outside it? Actually, why couldn't Rosa just teleport them out of the tower? Or even to the overworld? I don't know why I didn't think of that earlier.
Although you are right on that, I do have to ask now, I think Sid is about to do the same kind of sacrifice as Yang did a minute ago. Is that really happening?
Oh no, not another old guy exploding. That's the third time this week I've seen that happen.
I'd rather focus on Sid dying than ask you what you mean by the third time this week.
Unfortunately, yes, everyone Sid is also doing a very strange idea of a sacrifice, as the Red Wings need to be trapped down there in order for us to make it back to the surface.
Are you serious? I can't even count all the things wrong with this. First off, he's this great mechanic that can build a floating ship, but he can't make a timer for a bomb. Why does he even have the bomb to begin with? It certainly could have helped against the Dark Elf earlier. Next is the fact that he could have just stayed on the ship and threw it downwards to where it would still explode and he would have been fine. Third is the Red Wings managed to get underground already as they were here before the main party dropped the magma stone down the well and opened it up that way so it wouldn't trap the Red Wings down here, as there logically should be another way to get back to the surface. Fourth is simply the fact that there are now two guys who get themselves blown up within the span of 2 minutes where they could have easily avoided it. I don't know who came up with this section of the story, but they need to be fired immediately. Well, I guess it was written a few decades ago, so they're probably not still there, but you get the idea.
Yeah, I can't even argue with that. This is probably the weakest part of the story, as the motivation for those two really isn't explained at all, and their sacrifices seem pointless. We will be getting a new member to take Yang's place, although it's not happening yet. Ben, you are very accurate in your description what happened. I suppose that's why you talk about facts and logic so often, is because you really can bring them when they're needed.
That's good and all, but what's going on at Barren here? I'm not sure what we would have to do if we can already fly around in the airship.
I've got no idea myself, honestly. It's a little hard to take the story serious at this point, with all the strange decisions that have taken place over the past few minutes. I feel like a lot of this game so far is the gang finds some new place, a new character sometimes appears, they fight someone they've never seen before, get a crystal, lose the crystal, and repeat itself. It's not that I don't like the game, but it is pretty repetitive. At least Edward isn't here now, so that's nice.
I don't really have any defense to your assessments. Although I do like this game a lot, I can see why others would not appreciate aspects of the story or even gameplay with so many characters going in and out, sometimes with little reason. I do think it gets a lot better from here on, though. For now, we're actually going to focus on the Eblan castle, or rather what's left, as it doesn't have any people in it, and there's several items. I don't have anything interesting to say about it, so if anyone else wants to talk about something else, now is the time.
I could tell one of my stories since I have so many that I haven't said before. I've only maybe told 1% on all of the videos we've done so far.
Joe, the idea of you having that many more stories absolutely terrifies me, but before you start your ramblings, there was actually something we did want to try out. The 5 of us have been talking and want to try and interact a bit with the audience by asking them questions on occasion in some videos. I figured we could start with this one and ask what your favorite Final Fantasy game is. Barax, is this one for some reason that I can't quite understand, but we'd be curious on knowing what the viewers prefer. If I looked it up correctly, I think Final Fantasy 6, 7, 10, and 14 are the really popular ones, but I think all of them probably could be someone's favorite.
That would be interesting to know. Perhaps if you haven't played a Final Fantasy game before then, maybe you'll start after watching this or the other series. If not, that's okay. We'll come up with other questions to ask and get feedback on too.
I would like to see answers to those questions, but I'd also think the listeners and you all want to hear my story like you always do.
We really don't, but you're just going to tell it anyway.
So there I was traveling with Harold and Uglier Joe, as I tend to often when I suddenly realized the entire world was in danger of these things called sentinels. They were killing a lot of my friends, so I decided the only way to save the world was to have my mind be transported a few decades ago to stop the assassination of someone important, as that would change the future. I ran into this bald guy who could inject himself with something that made him walk but made him psychic when he wasn't. Anyway, we stopped the assassination attempt, but then it became public knowledge that these people with mutations were all over the world, and that caused people to hate them because they were different or something. I think one of them kills people by touching them, so I can see why that would be a problem. We convinced Magneto to stop killing people. The end.
Joe, that was just a shortened version of X-Men Days of Future Past. You may have even told that same story before, or maybe that was another X-Men story at this point. It's kind of hard to tell your stories apart as they're all about as nonsensical as each other.
I do find it kind of strange how your Uglier Joe and Harold friends just didn't really do anything in that story, but you still found it important enough to bring them up. I'm surprised you didn't mention your lizard that's somehow becoming another recurring character.
I would never put my lizard in danger for any of my stories. Sometimes it does appear in a dangerous situation, but I'm always sure he's safe even with all the mishaps I am around sometimes.
Before this video is over, I did want to mention a couple things on the game. The reason we went to Barren was so Sid's people could make it so the airship could bring that hovercraft to this section, as we're only able to access this cave with it, but I didn't actually say it when we were there. In addition, this is the cave where many of the Eblan castle residents went to before or while their castle was destroyed, so there were a lot of survivors, even if they're not in the best condition. We'll meet an important one next time.
As long as his name isn't Edward or he doesn't try to blow himself up at the first sign of danger, then I'll be happy with it.
I'm hoping we'll have all of our characters actually stay in the party, as to me it's getting a little tiring, see so many changes to the characters, so it's harder to get invested in some of them if they just end up leaving, especially if it's for a dumb reason.
It is getting close to having the final party members here, but if it helps anything, most of the characters we have will stay for the remainder of the game. I don't remember if I've mentioned this before, but in the Game Boy Advance and PlayStation Portable versions, you actually could switch between characters that left the party earlier, except for ones that completely died, like Tella. And don't worry, Donald the Edward you are thinking of will not join us here.
That's good to know. Is there anything else major happening in the rest of the minute we have left, or not really?
Not really, it's just more of the cave and a save point, but that's it.
Oh, good. At least this game does give us a bit of rest from the multiverse adventure we've been going through on our other playthrough.
Wait, multiverse in another playthrough, what does that mean?
In a not very subtle way of advertising, we're playing Kingdom Hearts, and there's this whole story arc of meeting up with other characters and seeing what other versions of us are like. At least that's what we're doing when this part is getting uploaded, as this might not make sense if you're watching this in a year or so after it's out.
That sounds kind of confusing, but also fun. I had a good time here today.
Aside from a few logical issues, I did too, and I'll be excited to see what comes up next.
We hope people enjoyed this today.
As always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, plus join the Discord group.
And as always, peace out, people.